It is. Okay. Hi, Tasha.
Hey, Kelly.
So this is my first video for the bad side of beauty, and this is actually Tasha's lovely idea that we get in and that we talk and we drive and we talk. And Tasha has been my dear friend for, gosh, 25, 30 years, something like that,
babe.
A long time. She is probably the most creative person I have ever met. I love seeing right now she's doing beautiful quilts with her own beautiful technique that involve her photography. She was in the photography world for years, in fashion photography, a wedding photographer. And so we're just gonna chit-chat about
Beauty.
Did I miss anything? Your beautiful husband, your lovely dogs are all my family. I love them dearly. Anyway, beauty. The bad side of beauty. So you have seen some of my videos online and just thought it would be interesting to start a conversation while we're driving. And so, what is it about the bad side of beauty that you feel like needs to be talked about more?
Well, that it just puts such a pressure on us to perform, to constantly focus on what is beauty, being beautiful in order to be acceptable and in order to be enough. Mm-hmm. And that just seeps into all the aspects of our lives. We start making all of our decisions based on enough. And the bad side of beauty, I think it starts right there. Am I pretty enough? Do I fit in? Are the girls going to like me? I can't wear that. They're going to hate that. And then now it evolves into the boys going to like me. So the bad side of beauty is, I really think, called just making us not feel worthy.
Right. And well, how do you feel like that's affected you personally?
Oh, well, a lifelong frustration in dealing with obesity. I mean, always aware that, I had a different body shape than other girls. And it was a normal body shape. But it wasn't thin. It wasn't model-ish like. It wasn't thin like my younger sister. So that became, that defined who I was constantly growing up. My sister had the defining what beauty was supposed to look like. I did not. So the bad side of beauty for me became, oh man, I can't measure up, and what do I do? And so it starts a whole focus, a lifetime of getting thin, losing weight. Should I, shouldn't I? And sometimes eventually going, I don't care, I give up. Let's gain 100 pounds, let's draw. It has been never ending.
Okay. And so how do you feel about it now? How do you feel about yourself now? How did you learn to adjust to that to feel like you were enough?
Oh God, that's still happening. I suppose outside successes in my career, I have been very fortunate to be well thought of, do pretty work, but it's still the bad side of beauty. I love that phrase. Happened even in every meeting I went into when I sat down with you, and even though I've shown you books in my portfolio, and I am nationally accepted as a really incredible wedding photographer, I still felt I had to prove something to you. Still had to prove like I'm good enough, even though I'm not pretty enough. I'm fat, but I'm going to be okay. You won't regret having me, even though I don't fit the norm. So I got through it by sheer will, and finally getting to a point where the amount of weight I have to lose can sometimes feel so insurmountable. You just get to like, screw it, this is who I am. So maybe I pushed it to where I just had to get to, this is who I am, take me or leave me, and I am going to become successful, even in the face of what you think I can and cannot do.
Do you think working in the fashion industry affected you, and that's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, what did you observe about it affecting other?
Well, what I observed about it was, yes, it affected me because one, believe it or not, I got my start by going and bartering with a national designer who didn't want to pay photographers, but I could get into a magazine, Interview magazine and Glamour magazines, and I'd barter. Well, she had nothing that fit me. So all of my crew would get these great clothing, but I was still too big. And to give you an idea of what too big was back then, 45 years ago with it, was a size 16. and she had nothing. Her large was maybe a 12 at most. So everybody around me got the benefits of that. And how did it affect me? I'd have models come into me. One time I remember this beautiful girl comes in, she's crying. I said, what's it? You know, her name was Lisa, that I remember this as a, you know, and she did Coca-Cola ads and stuff. She goes, I just came from a photographer and he told me I was 3 pounds too heavy and I can't shoot with him this week. And I looked at this amazing person who is sobbing to her core that she is 3 pounds overweight. And I just started getting to the point, I don't want to do this. I can't be part of this machine. And there were points my husband, who's also a photographer, would go, yeah, but maybe you can bring something different to it. I couldn't. It was still the industry it was. No, they were still going to show fat people. I mean, I said they were not going to show fat people. I said, so if you mean what I can bring to it is that here's a fat photographer shooting fashion, that's about all I can bring to it. I'm not bringing I can't change. And look at the models in front of me and said, you know, it's okay. Gain 5 pounds. Nobody's going to notice. That wouldn't float. So for me, it became joyless. Mm-hmm. It just became a manipulation of these people and being told, you know, and I felt like, I guess, to not be a victim, you look at it, okay, here's the industry standard, this, and this. If you can't meet those standards, then don't play. Well, I get that, and fine, but not meeting the standards because it's not the best job fit is different than not meeting the standards and then them shaming you and not feeling enough. Totally different. I am not a victim, I get. You want to work with me? Well, if you're going to work with Tasha Owen, here's the is. You better be hardworking. I am the boss, etc., etc. I will be kind, etc. If you don't like those rules, then you don't have to work with me. The fashion world doesn't necessarily work that way. You're getting kicked out because of a way you look or don't look. And, you know, it's weird, that movie, The Devil Wears Prada. Mm-hmm. It's such a weird thing. I so wanted to cheer for her when she was like going to be just who she was. Oh, when you're going to go down there and turn around, we're going to go look at the fairies. But
I'm on the fairy line.
But, you know, it's like, but then they have what they always have to give, the makeover scene. And now she's more acceptable. But I find myself cheering for the makeover scene, going, oh my God, I love that outfit. I love how it's put together. And that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in she's worth more now.
Okay.
She's worth more.
Right.
Now that she's changed, now she's worth more. That's the part that isn't okay.
Right. Right. So here we have an industry, and you're seeing it from the inside, and how it's affecting the models, and then how it was happening in Devil's Wears Prada, and how it affected when she changed. But how do you feel like that transfers out to the rest of society?
Well, okay, let's go to brides. I've spent 15 years photographing brides. I cannot tell you how many brides' hands I have held and told them, you are absolutely lovely. Feel lovely today. No, they felt was a little tight. They didn't lose enough weight. And it's like, you are going to let this take over the day that you are marrying this person that you're deciding right now. So how did it transfer? In almost 50% of the brides that I have photographed, and I have photographed over 800 weddings. That's where that beauty translates to. Every wedding day, where I have to have somebody, where I have a size 24 girl send me pictures beforehand and then tell me I don't know what to do. And I said, you know, Sarah, we're going to be fine. And then for her to see the pictures and write me and cry and said she never felt prettier, and thank you. And I had her spinning in her dress. But I bet to this day what'll happen, hopefully she said going to lose weight. And will she be able to look back at those pictures and think she was okay when she's lost weight and she's fat in her pictures? I don't know. So I have find, weddings are completely the bad part of beauty. Is my makeup right? Is my hair right? And it's like, I seriously, I've held many a bride's hand saying, you look beautiful. And we're going to help you feel beautiful. And we're going to play. And try to get them to get outside of that. Their fear of walking down the aisle. Is somebody going to not love how they look? I mean, the only thing I can say that I would like to see in terms of the bad side of beauty is pull those dresses up, girls. The boobs start hanging out all the time. And I'm like, I got to Photoshop some of that. So, it's like, you're not going to love that Uncle George is looking all the way down your cleavage. So, that's the only part. And it's like, but have the dress fit, and then you'll feel beautiful. So that's how I've seen it. Very much it affects Kelly.
Yeah, definitely. So, we've talked before about that phrase, external validation. And so you're talking so much about what other people think about how we fit in. And so we've also talked a little bit about how did this get started in the first place? How do you think this whole worrying about fitting in and external validation?
As you and I have talked, survival for one thing. Women were so connected with their survival, and being wanted. And if you're wanted, you have more options in life. If you're wanted by more than one man, maybe you can look at the options. Back when the days were there when we had to get approval for a credit card from our husbands, getting the right husband really mattered a whole lot.
Right.
And getting the right husband had a lot to do with, did they think we were the right looking wife? Mm-hmm. So you can do a big long drive or go to the zoo. So whatever you like.
I think we'll go. We're in Point Defiance Park.
We are in Point Defiance Park.
Drive, so I can
and
drive
it's
safely.
like really great. It's like one of my favorite trees in the world. I did a bride standing in the middle of that tree, and it's like, and she did feel wonderful, and that was great. But yeah, survival. And then advertising did no favors for the world. Advertising did no favors. And it does no favors right now to us, even just consumers. Even aside from beauty, just what you're supposed to have in your house, what you're supposed to need. If you don't, what brands to eat. And consumerism. And then we get driven by, now we have a whole weight loss industry. And we've always had, it was like Nutrisystem and all of that geared. 40 years ago, it was about how you look. It wasn't about better heart health, which I'm thinking a lot of it. I am amazingly aware of this. This is not keeping this amount of weight for my own health is where I'm headed. And it needs to change. To what degree it changes, we'll see how that goes. But I wish I would have known 30 years ago, take care of yourself to be healthy. But 30 years ago, what mattered was, how do I fit in? And I could never fit in. And when your body doesn't look like the ads, I was reading a great article about Twiggy, and they saw the amount of eating disorders they started tracing back to when Twiggy came on, because Twiggy's body is so not the norm. That was just a genetic thing that we created Twiggy. Well, some photographer finds her, decides that he's pretty, she's pretty, and she fits his idea of, beauty. And the next thing you know, designers like how their dresses are hanging on her, and now her dresses and clothing look flattering. So now Twiggy's out there, and we have a whole group of people aspiring to be Twiggy, and their bodies are not genetically predisposed to being Twiggy. That's how, and it starts. So I'm sure it started back with the classes of the king and the queens. When suddenly, we see a queen that looks like this. White wedding dresses started happening because a queen wore a white wedding dress.
Oh.
Before that, colors were very accepted. Okay. So, where did it start? I think it started at the basic sense of survival, women needing men to take care of themselves. What makes you attractive to men? And we are just going to set up our odds for what can we get. And even today, rich men, wealthy men, regular men, trading in older models for newer models. It still is perpetuated out there, which unfortunately has caused a competition amongst women.
Thank you. Right. I like that you brought that up. The comparison, the competition. What do you think about that? What do you notice about that?
First of all, what I loved about being a little heavier in high school, I had girlfriends. I wasn't a risk at all. I didn't threaten them. And until the one day that a girlfriend came to me and said, I just want you to know, Eric thinks you are just amazing. He loves your art. He just would love to go out with you sometime. And I just started sobbing. And it's like, I thought she hates me. And being heavy took me out of competition with women. I can be successful. I can have all the accolades that I can get in life, but I have one thing wrong with me. I'm fat. How fabulous. And I'm a threat to nobody because I'm fat.
Interesting. So on one hand, it helped you cultivate all of these other things about you, your art, your creativity.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting how you were comparing yourself and keeping yourself safe.
Well, I think beauty can be if you rely on it, can be a real hindrance. I think beauty can be like a discrimination also.
Okay.
I think you can walk in a room and be judged. I had a gorgeous girlfriend in high school. Her name was Debbie. And Debbie was the kind of beauty that even at 16, you'd walk in a room and everybody stopped. And she was as bright and fabulous as anybody had ever known. And she hated being beautiful. She hated it. She hated that she never knew, did somebody like her because she was smart or because she was pretty. And it was a fascinating thing to learn that. And because you would think that Deb had the world on her string. I mean, I'm talking, I watched the men teachers automatically gravitate toward answering her question. It was so obvious. And she hated it. And yet I had a sister. Oh, look at the raccoon. Ooh, we're in the zoo.
Ooh,
I had a sister whose beauty was everything. And traded on it to the sky. I mean, she got everything. She traded on it. I saw her throw fits when a gift wasn't the gift that she wanted, and tell him that she can do better. And she dumped that boyfriend and got a ritual. I mean, I absolutely had a sister who traded on her beauty. But beauty, I think, had I been that so-called perfect, would I have gotten caught up in the world of dating and who's who in high school instead of sitting at my pottery throwing wheel and being totally focused on that? Would I? Who knows?
Right. It's hard to say. I mean,
it is very hard to say.
Very, would be a great conversation about the journeys of life. And
I've had people look at me and tell me, you're not an ugly fat person. And then I told you earlier about one day I lost weight and somebody goes through, I was the cashier, and said, oh my God, you were such a little piglet. Now you look so right. So they think they're giving me a compliment on beauty. But now you've just made me feel like shit that I've been walking around and people in the world are looking at me as I've been so ugly. And I'm talking, I was probably 30 pounds overweight at the time in terms of the value of the world. I was a size 16 instead of a 12. Back in the days, there still weren't zeros really. But yeah, so it is what we do for beauty. I mean, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's a wonderful black man. And we were talking about discrimination. And he said, a fat white woman is as close to what you'll understand discrimination of what I experienced, Tasha. He got it. He said, I watch. He goes, I know that you experience a whole room judging you the minute you walk in a room, not knowing anything about how you are. So the bad side of beauty is they all have a thing on beauty, and they have decided they don't know any of my qualities. They don't know what magazines I've been published in. They haven't a clue as to what I've brought to certain industries. They only know that this is a fat one, and I'll give you even one more. People have expressed behind our backs, Tom is so handsome, he could have anybody. So the bad side of beauty has been, I have been at that other side of never be acceptable to the world of the beautiful. So yeah.
There's a deer now.
Looks like Rosie. Oh, you're a new baby deer. Mama's probably out getting stuff.
Yeah. So
go that way.
You you've lived through, a lot of a lot of prejudices then. And how have you dealt with that for yourself? I mean, we were talking about earlier, like, we live in this very visual world. We all seem to judge each other. How have you dealt with it, and how do you feel like we could go about changing being such a visual?
I don't know that we could change it. I think we have to become more human. We have to become more in touch with our humanity and find our compassion. But that again becomes a lifelong thing. I mean, I remember the first time I lost 100 pounds and realized I was treated different. It was really hard not to be angry about that.
Oh,
really hard.
Okay.
It was hard not to want to think I don't want your compliments. I don't want anything from you all. That you like me better now really makes me angry. And I had to learn to forgive their short-sightedness. I mean, I had to start looking at, we all have this stuff. We are only human. Mm-hmm. And hopefully that in how I act will put out something. I'm not going to change somebody who inherently dislikes fat people. There are doctors who can't stand fat people. I have sat across the table trying to, showing a portfolio. And when I looked at the woman, I asked, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I'm a fitness instructor. This was 10 years ago. I said, I'm not getting this job, am I? And she just was like, a little surprised I put it there. And I said, and that's totally okay. I said, not everybody's a good fit. You can go left again. So, yeah. I mean, so you will learn forgiveness. Otherwise, and I'm going to tell you the honest to God truth, Tom has never treated me differently, whether I was 100 pounds or overweight or 100 pounds less. His family never treated me differently. My family did. His family never did anything but treat me with respect. He's never not told me I'm beautiful every morning. Every day. I walk downstairs.
I love that. I love that about Tom.
And I used to get angry because he wouldn't say, honey, I'm noticing you're losing weight. I remember getting mad at him. And so there, the bad side of beauty still had a hold of me, because now I'm trying to lose weight to become more acceptable so that somebody's going to think I'm pretty. And this man who absolutely must have blinders on, who used to work with incredible models, and the photographers would laugh because they'd be flirting with him, and he doesn't notice. And this man only always goes, I love that, what you're wearing. Well, except recently, he did ask why the pockets were one way. I'm like, oh my God, we're discussing pockets. But I just was like, I would get mad at him. I wanted to push him into, there's a way I should be. And how wonderful that he never did. Never. In fact, the only reason he ever has said a thing about my weight is he sees I move better when I lose some weight, and he's not so concerned about my health. That's it. So how you get through it? Love, support, forgiveness, all the things I think in humanity. How do you get through anything? How do people get through discrimination? All of it. I mean, because isn't that what you're discussing when you talk about the bad side of beauty? It's not only that we're not enough, there's a huge discrimination that occurs.
There is. So you had brought up the positive body movement. Is that what it was called?
Body positivity.
Body positivity, which on one side seems to be
go that way.
Like the antithesis, or trying to do something about the discrimination. And do you feel like that's working?
It is in a way, and still in some ways, it still is hard to drive people's prejudices. They have a hard time believing, okay, I get that you want to do body positivity, and now we're so concerned about health that we right away bring it back to, yeah, but is this healthy? Okay. So is it helping? It is helping I don't know if it's helping educate people who are not heavy. I think it is giving the people who are heavy a voice. Okay. That's what I think it's really doing. And how wonderful that they feel that there is a tribe, there is a voice. When you go to some of these body positivity sites, oh, Kelly, I get it. You can go down by the beach or we can flip around. When you go to their sites, they often have places like forums that literally you can read to your doctor when you go in, like a list of, are you going to be able to treat me kindly? Are you going to be able to look at other things? Are you not going to blame everything on my weight? It's very common when you go to a doctor when you're heavy, the first thing they're going to do, well, that'll be taken care of if you lost weight. Well, that's not only true. I have had the wonderful experience of a primary care physician who looks at me, who actually will not let me blame my life on my weight, and will say, I have thin patients that have this very same thing. Plantar fasciitis is not caused by obesity. Okay. Does it exacerbate it? Probably. You're heavy, you're walking on it. Are your risks higher to get diabetes if you're heavy? Yes. Do I have thin patients that are diabetic? Yes. So stop blaming everything on the fact. And she goes, I am not going to treat you differently because of your weight. When I first got breast cancer, the first thing my breast cancer oncologist looked at me and said, your weight did not cause this. Beautiful. He said, now, did they become risk factors? Yes. But can we point definitively and tell you, oh yeah, you're definitely. He said, but not, it's like smoking, inactivity. There are parallels to, but we're not going to make you feel guilty. And I love that. I had another physician, I've had great physicians, look at me and said, yes, your weight is a problem. It's causing these high estrogen levels, etc. But let's treat you from where you are. This is what we're going to do. We're going to treat you from where you are. How beautiful. Treat me from where I am. Oh, we used to be able to go down there. That's why we no longer have a 5-mile drive. Okay, we'll leave the park. So that's what's really important. And so the body positivity movement has helped give people a voice when they go into their care providers. They have more of, I'm going to say this. And the truth is, black women experience it worse than white women going into doctors. You know, they're often their care. So this is just one more little kind of something that women have to, but yeah, the body positivity has hopefully given it a voice. I haven't found it to just go all out. Let's just eat everything you want and change it. That isn't their voice. Their voice is, but to accept us from where we are right now, please. I mean, the truth is, what I have discovered with most fat people, we know more about nutrition than most of you guys. It's like, I sometimes laugh and say, you want to know about nutrition? Talk to a fat person. That's that same raccoon.
Yeah, who's going to cross in front of us now?
I mean, and I looked at a doctor that I did have to go to recently, and I looked at him and said, do you think I'd be fat if I thought anything I've tried could do something about it? I said, I run a successful photography business. I have written music. I've gotten to hear my songs on a radio. I have been able to achieve almost everything I've set out to, except keep off my weight. So what does that tell you? So you're judging me. So yeah, and that's what I do want to sometimes yell for the beauty people is, if you think that it worked, that I wasn't in a starvation mode every time or had to think 24/7 about it and not create. That's what it takes for me to focus 24/7 to do only that which I'm going to be told will get me to lose weight, and back then it would have made me be more beautiful. That's what it's going to take, and I'm going to sacrifice now my creativity in the quest for being what you think I ought to be. So that's where the body positivity people have gone kind of at, do you think this is where we want to be, all of us? No. It's hard to be big. And it's hard to... you get an armor. I mean, now I walk in a room, I can care less what I think people are thinking. Have your opinions. And it comes on the flip side. It's taught me to be a more humane person. I have a friend who actually will decide not to like people who are prettier. I have had a friend ask me not to invite somebody to a party because that person was beautiful and other people would be looking at them. It was actually you.
Was it now?
It was. That they asked me not to invite.
Wow.
And I said, this woman is the most unpretentious woman that I have ever met where beauty comes. and that you consider her a threat says a lot about her and beauty. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Tasha.
You're
That's
welcome.
a lovely message to hear. And, it's because you talk about, being beautiful, and that also your friend, who didn't want to, there is that feeling like, well, do people like me because I'm beautiful? Or sometimes I've had to realize, wow, I suppose I am intimidating somebody, and knowing how to go, okay, stop looking.
Well, have you ever made a choice? Take a right. Have you ever made a choice to wear something different and not be as pretty in it? Isn't that the bad side of beauty? So look at that. That side of beauty makes you less than you want to be at that moment. And isn't that what we're discussing? Any of this stuff that makes us less than who we are, that doesn't allow us to shine our light, we are shorting not only ourselves, but we are shorting humanity. And that's what really happens. But yeah, had you not come to the party, I can still see Paul laughing with you. He wouldn't have had the joy of getting to know you. Yeah. Bad speed bumps coming up, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
This is one of my favorite places to shoot in Tacoma, because you can do a photo here and you think you're in the middle of a forest or somewhere in a field.
I know, this is very,
Isn't this fun?
This is fun.
Yep. So I think those are all the flip sides of the bad side of beauty. It's looking at, to the left of the requirements that happen on the so-called beautiful person, the performance that you are expected to go through to maintain the constant beauty, so you don't flip the bad side, which is not being enough, being judged. And for you, then we get into even more with the bad side of beauty called, ooh, she doesn't look quite as good as she used to.
Isn't that a fascinating thing?
Isn't that?
That's been an interesting topic with the aging. And I showed some of my modeling pictures to somebody that I'm dating, and I felt compelled to go, and this is not how I look anymore. Please remember that.
See, isn't that hard?
Yeah.
Instead, if we could almost understand that it was play.
Yeah.
So as a photographer, loving to shoot pretty things, man, I love and I love to sew. So yes, do I look at a model and I look at their stuff and it's like, oh my God, you're making that look so cute. I love that. Why can't we just say it is play? Because it's play. Right. And so to show those pictures has to almost feel like, oh my good enough, I'm going to have to let you know, no, you were younger, that's it. And our bodies change. That's all it meant.
That's all it meant. And, I think I had a similar thing happen at one point that you did when you were like maybe reflecting back on your size when you were younger. And I would look back at my pictures.
Same thing.
And go, wow.
Same thing.
I can't believe I felt fat.
Absolutely.
I didn't feel good about myself.
Yep.
And granted, I was having to rely on how I looked to make my living.
Yep, that's a challenge too.
And that was a challenge all in of itself. But I go back, or I send my younger self a lot of compassion and almost apologies for all of that pressure that I put on myself.
So age is an amazing equalizer. Age, so you ask, how do I reconcile it? Because I'm now out of the game. I can never be 30 and have to wonder about, do I look right? Nobody expects a 67-year-old woman to look a certain way. Now, I wish we weren't quite as invisible, but I will admit that I am hard to be invisible just based on my personality. I get that. But age has taken away the worry about, do I give a care what that person thinks about me when I walk in a room?
Right. You gotta give up those cares. Definitely.
I have no energy for it anymore. So therein, have I dissected it to the very end of why it happened? I could, but what occurs 67 years old, you just go, I don't have the time or the energy for it anymore. So how fabulous. I wish I could have understood at 24 when I was at this perfect weight. I looked cute in a picture. And I remember thinking I'm horrible. And I look back now, like you said, and go, wow, how wonderful if I would have just decided back then, I don't have the energy and the time for this.
Right. So now, though, the benefit, don't you feel like, of being at this age is the things that you described. You don't really care. But we've also cultivated these beautiful relationships that where we support each other, and it's based on who we are, not on how we look.
I find I have a 22-year-old goddaughter, stunning woman. You know, just love to look at her because I just love her features and everything. Her idea and self-image is so tattered from her time with social media that I am distressed, and it makes me sad to see her. She has a rule that none of us can put up photos of any time after she was 10 years old.
Oh, that's a sad rule.
But yet she'll do selfies when she's feeling the need to be accepted with her peers, if she can be. But she doesn't want to see any of the later pictures I ever took of her.
Yeah. So, do you talk with her about that? About why that is?
No, we just given her the space for it. But she is participating in my Blue Petticoat series, which totally surprised me.
So she's going to be in
But I think it's because I've made it about play.
Okay.
Let's take this silly, fluffy blue netting petticoat from Amazon, and I'm going to tie big netting bows on it and pin some roses on it, and we're going to play, and we're just going to play. And it's not about how you look. I've asked other people. I'm going to even put the petticoat on at some point. So it's like, let's just play. What occurs when we just do it for the purpose of, oh my God, I think this is going to be fun. Should I put a ribbon here? Yeah, let's put a ribbon there. Let's see. What occurs when we stay in that energy and play? And then the end result, I'm going to morph them just a bit so that they can't really identify to a particular way I'm supposed to look. And that is the purpose of it, is for me literally to hopefully, I got to move it out of the beautiful, because that becomes judged on that whole other stuff, to this was a play day and look what we did.
Don't you think that would have been wonderful if, like, because fashion can be so creative.
Oh my gosh.
And design, so they could have just kept it play.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I guess
market and money got involved. Money gets involved to tell you this is what you're going to look like, this is what you need to wear. What do you think all the influencers do on the internet? I mean, I'm seeing that happen at weddings where they want to have now a content photographer come with an iPhone and do reels all day on making sure everything looks like the perfect fit. That becomes the bad side of beauty. And we're not even talking physical. We're talking about, does my wedding look exactly like something that would get posted on Instagram? And if it isn't, these brides are sad. They're
it's
sad.
So not about the rest of your life with somebody. It's about this.
No. Because they have... And this is not to say they're shallow, horrible people. They are becoming almost victims of this society that we're creating, you know? Weddings didn't look like this 25 years ago. Now Pinterest told you how it's supposed to look. This is what is beautiful in a wedding. So we have it there too. So it's moved us away from the more organic essence of, oh, I'm too over that. You know, every now and then I'll come up with a person who's like, I don't care about any of that. I just want to be married. And yes, I would love some pretty flowers, but the world's not going to fall apart if there's not pretty flowers. So yeah, Kelly, it's consumerism in a lot of it.
Definitely.
I mean, especially in today's world, but where it all started, I mean, I think we're going back to the cavemen. I mean, and that becomes in a DNA. Women have this part, men have this part. You're just going to keep going straight. And I mean, we get back to survival.
Kind of comes full circle.
It does come.
Even though now, especially for women, we can provide for ourselves, but it's so ingrained in...
And, you know, we're not only just talking, you know, you and I have talked that this also affects men. You know, I told you my father built his life on being handsome. And his grief with getting older, even though he stayed incredibly good looking into his late 70s. But when that was, you know, taken too, life was meaningless for him. So, I mean, and I think men go through it a lot too.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, the aging part maybe is a little bit easier on men than women, but I would say, yeah.
I mean, I must admit, I have gotten really crazy about if a movie has an actor that's 30 years older than the lead woman, I don't want to watch it anymore. I'm so over watching 65-year-old men kiss 30-year-old women in movies.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's pretty well, I'm done with that. You know, that to me is, but I mean, I know that that's a huge, broad brushstroke. And I know that there's some fabulous relationships out there that have huge age gaps. But I don't know, when it happens to the movies, it's just, I still feel it's one more thing about women. Men, you can get old, women, you can't. I mean, they don't have, okay, I'll put it this way. When they have women who are 30 years older than the man in a movie, then I'll start deciding it's fair game for both sides. But I'm having a hard time coming up with a film where the woman is 35 years older than the male lead. So when that happens, I'm right back there. When that playing field evens out, but it's not at the moment.
No. So to kind of start winding up this beautiful conversation, which
it's been so fun. You make me always think about some stuff, and it's been fun to drive, and I think it's been great.
Yeah, but my last question is, what do you love about beauty in all of its different...
Oh my God. I love that it should be almost undefinable and that it's connected to so much more. I mean, what is it? There is a scene from the movie American Beauty, and the boy has made a video, and it's of this bag just floating. I cry every time I watch it because that is beautiful. So tell me, what makes a bag floating with the wind in a movie so beautiful that it makes me cry and to even think about? And it's the moment. It's the intent. It's the capturing of the moment of seeing something that I think encompasses all our other senses. I think that's what beauty is.
It's when you really feel.
It's when you feel. It's
and
when
all the beautiful
all of
emotion
it
comes up
it
in
is.
your face. It's so beautiful.
It is. That's what it is. It's that you look at something and it's so beautiful to you that it hurts.
Well, my goal is to help change a lot of the bad side of beauty. So maybe one day everybody can look at themselves and feel exactly like we feel when we see bags floating or whatever it is that brings up that feeling, right?
I agree. What it would be like to look in the mirror and to just feel so beautiful you hurt. Yeah.
I think that's
a great place. Goal. That's a very cool way to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Tasha.
You're welcome.
We're almost back to your house, and we had such a beautiful conversation.
We had a great conversation.
Thank you so much for this idea and for being my
You're
first
welcome.
guest.
Thank you.
Love you so much.
Love you too.